is our engineer slash producer back in Houston. A lot to do over the next 3 hours of the show. Busy show tonight. Got the great Tony Casillas, former Dallas Cowboys great, Super Bowl winner. Dallas native. Get some thoughts with him on the Cowboys and what they should do about this Dak Prescott Cooper Rush situation, and just kind of examining the Cowboys as a whole, because I talked about it last night on the show. And when you look at them and the 49ers, those are two sleeper teams right now, if they can be called that. Because in all of the talk of Kansas City and the flip play on Sunday night from Patrick Mahomes, it was such a thing of beauty. And the Bills, beating everybody up. And yeah, they have a loss, but everybody knows the Bills will be there near the end of the year. And all the talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and the slow start and Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes here. Talk about the pending dumpster fire, it feels like the Buccaneers are becoming. We can get into all of that stuff. But there's two teams to me, and I'm never one that drinks the Kool-Aid on the Cowboys. But I look at them in the 49ers, and I see two teams that are both capable of not just going to a Super Bowl, but winning a Super Bowl. Tony Casillas will join us in the next hour of the program, about an hour and a half from now. We'll also be joined tonight by Nando DeFino, who's with The Athletic, also Better Sports Radio. We'll get some thoughts with him about some of the betting news of the day, and also some fantasy talk with him. Maybe I'll even slip in a baseball card question or two, because I know he's a big baseball card collector too. So we'll get to all of that as we go through the show. But as we continue, I want to talk about the Buccaneers, because the more and more stories that come out of Tampa these days, the more and more you start to wonder if this team's going to stay together throughout the season. I'll explain what I'm talking about next on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page at Sports Map Radio. 12 minutes past the hour. Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. Good to have you with us tonight. The telephone number to participate is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can tweet at the show at the back page. Oh, tonight's a giveaway night, isn't it? I forgot it's Wednesday. It's a giveaway night. I'm going to have to go reach into the prize closet and pull something out. So here's the rules. It's very simple. If you follow me on Twitter, you are eligible to win. So what you have to do is go to Twitter, go and follow me. My name is my username is at the back page, spelt exactly how it sounds. You go and follow me, send me a note saying hello, you're entered to win. We draw a winner at the end of the night. Done so. Simple as that. But you got to follow me on Twitter at the back page in order to be eligible to win. All right, I'll grab something out of the prize closet and we'll put it up on the screen in a little bit. Okay, so look, anybody who watched Sunday night, you know, it's one thing when your offense struggles the way the Buccaneers have throughout this season, and people talk about, well, so-and-so is hurt, and, you know, make all these sorts of excuses for why they're struggling offensively. But the reality is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not been a very good football team through the first 4 weeks. And on Sunday night, I don't care what the final score says, they got obliterated on their home field, prime time, Sunday night, by Patrick Mahomes and a Chiefs team that just looked like they wanted it more throughout much of the night. And don't talk to me about the 31 points that Tampa Bay scored in this game. That was namely the Chiefs playing, you know, their defense basically playing to the scoreboard. Because the Chiefs could score virtually whenever they wanted in this game. I have your case in point.
Offset eye at the 2. They fake the trap. Now Mahomes scrambling to his right, holding it, gets off the hit, now lunging forward, and now fires it late, caught at the back of the end zone. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Mahomes with the touchdown pass. His second touchdown pass of this game, the 161st of his career. That is the most touchdown passes by any NFL quarterback in history in their first 67 games.
You could hear like the hyperventilating of the play-by-play guy. Jesus, calm down, man. 106.5 The Wolf on the call. So you saw it for yourself. I mean, he was able to dice and carve up the Buccaneers defense any way he wanted. And as bad as the Buccaneers were through the first 3 weeks of the season, the one thing they can lean on was the fact that our defense is still playing well. And you can win in this league with a mediocre offense if you have a really good defense. Well, on Sunday night, we found out that defense really isn't that good. And granted, there aren't a lot of offenses as dynamic and capable as the Kansas City Chiefs, but still, they got absolutely dissected on Sunday night. And Tom Brady has looked okay through the first 4 games, but he hasn't lit up the world. And with receivers out, guys retiring, now you look at Brady through the first 4 games, and he's been pretty pedestrian. I don't think he's physically done as far as, well, because he's 45, can he still make the throws? I still think physically he can make most of the throws in the game. I haven't seen anything that indicates that. But is he capable of lifting what thus far has been a subpar offense with mediocre guys on the offensive end and being able to make them into something better than what they've actually been through the first 4 games? Is there any reason I should expect that to change over the final 13 games of the season? I don't know. And then you hear the stories about Brady getting a divorce attorney and Gisele Bündchen is getting a divorce attorney and divorce looks like it's on the horizon, and you wonder how that might affect his play. And look, I'm not making light of the fact that this guy is going through some things personally because, like I said, I even kind of cringe talking about it. Because even though he's a public figure and a celebrity and all these things, and everybody says, well, it's fair game, you sign up for that, it's still something that feels a little unseemly in terms of talking about it in the context of sports. It's real life stuff. There's kids involved. It's a mess. But I don't think it's unfair to suggest that in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a tiny amount, that some of that can't come to work with him. He'd only be human if it did. And then, you hear about the stories out of Buccaneers camp today where Brady didn't practice. He's dealing with a shoulder and a finger injury. And then Todd Bowles isn't there. Todd Bowles was away from the team due to, quote, personal reasons. I don't know what that's about. And again, I get it. It's personal. You get to keep it to yourself. But when you have a team that's 2-2 and has looked the way the Buccaneers did, and quite honestly, if Dak Prescott and the Cowboys don't play like hot garbage in week 1, you're talking about a 1-3 Buccaneers team through the first 4 games. Wasn't like Tampa Bay played great in that week 1 game. They just played a little better than a bad Dallas team, which has since turned it around. And if you had those 2 teams playing right now in week 5, even with what I saw in week 1, I'd still take the Cowboys. So Bowles was away from the team. Brady's dealing with shoulder and finger injuries. Now, Ian Rappaport, NFL insider, said on Tuesday Brady's going to be okay. Injuries should not drastically affect his play. Not drastically affect his play? Does that mean it affects it a little bit? The margin of error in this league, in case anybody hasn't noticed right now, if you're watching the first 4 weeks of the season, the margin of error right now is so slim in this league. Go ask the Ravens. They have 2 losses, 2 heartbreaking losses. Lost a big lead at home to Miami. Made the wrong decision on 4th down. Maybe Lamar Jackson did. Maybe John Harbaugh did. You can decide for yourself. And lost this week to the Ravens, to the Bills rather. I mean, just use them as an example. How small the margin of error is in this league right now. You don't have any wiggle room when it comes to the difference between winning and losing. And yeah, if you asked me right now, 4 weeks into the season at 2-2, do I think Tampa Bay will still wind up being in the postseason? Well, yeah, they probably will. And a big part of the reason why is their division really isn't very good. You've had Jameis Winston hurt in New Orleans. The Saints haven't been very good. Remember, everybody thought that was going to be a Super Bowl team. You've seen what Carolina is with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. By the way, Baker, calm down when somebody asks you a tough question at a press conference. And you know what Atlanta is. So even in the midst of this 2-2 sluggish start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you would still pick them to win the division. But would you pick them to win much more with what you've seen through the first 4 weeks? No, I get it. There's a lot of time. 13 more games. The season's already long, and it's just got even longer with the extra game. Anything can happen. And you never bet against Tom Brady. But this isn't about Brady anymore. It's about the roster around him. It's about the guys around him. It's about the head coach, who, by the way, never really has won anything in his career. This isn't Todd Bowles replacing some garbage coach. This is Todd Bowles replacing a Super Bowl winning coach in Bruce Arians. Now, Todd Bowles has a lot to prove as a head coach in this league. And thus far, I ain't got a lot of great things to say about Todd Bowles so far. And I get it. Again, they're dealing with some injuries. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's dealing with injuries on some level. Even just 4 weeks into the season. I mean, the Cowboys are without their $40 million a year quarterback in Dak Prescott. And guess what? They're still 3-1 through 4 games. And this wasn't the only odd news coming out of Bucs camp today. It gets a little weirder, and I'll explain how One guy that just got to the team is already gone. I'll tell you who it is and what he said in his retirement notification, I guess you could say, is something worth examining. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page, especially if you want to be entered to win in our weekly giveaways. We'll be giving away something tonight. Stick around. More to do on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page at Sports Map Radio. Good to be hanging out with you on this Wednesday night. Appreciate you being part of the show, no matter where you are and how you are absorbing this program. Some of the stories I see, if you guys knew the amount of preparation that I put into doing this show, and look, not to bang on other hosts, but I will for a second because I can. I mean, there's a lot of lazy sports radio hosts. You know, guys who will say, here's a topic and here's a question. Now call me. And we'll spend the next 30 minutes on the phones with you giving your opinion. Too lazy to prepare for the show. I've never believed in that. we'll take calls sparingly on this show. I invite you to call in 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. But I want calls that enhance the show, not just the same people repeating the same things over and over again to prove that I can get calls. I just don't need it. I don't believe in it. And I don't think most people listen to hear what a caller has to say as opposed to the host of the show. And there are certain nights where I think you lean more heavily on calls. If you have, breaking news, a history-making performance, something of that ilk, in that case, you can lean on calls a bit more. But it's just not something that I believe in doing. I think it's lazy. I think it's what lazy sports radio hosts do. And there's a lot of those out there that collect a paycheck every day. So I do a lot of preparation for this show, and I go deep into places and sources and different places that a lot of hosts probably don't go to. And I know because I don't hear a lot of people talk about some of the stories that I'll bring up in the course of a show. And man alive, I found something today. I found a story today that when I was preparing for the show that just blew my mind. Like one of those things that and I'm not I'm not one to proselytize too much or, be that guy sitting on his front porch saying, get off my lawn. I love it when the old days, ... But sometimes I see stories that you truly couldn't imagine happening in any other era except this one. I've been watching this Antonio Brown thing, former Buccaneers receiver, former Raiders receiver for 5 minutes, former Steelers receiver, now retired. And I've been seeing all the stories and the videos that have been out there with him and stuff that just kind of makes you shake your head. But I got a story for you guys coming up in a few that it blows your mind. We were talking about the Buccaneers and sort of the dumpster fire that is the Buccaneers right now. And that's what it is. I mean, look, it's been a slow motion sort of train wreck between the stuff with Brady. Everybody forgets before the season starts, 11-day absence from the team. You've got players injured as the season starts. You got players getting suspended, or a player gets suspended after the game against the Saints. I mean, you've got all these different things going on around this team. No Gronk, new head coach. Just a lot of disarray. And for a guy like Tom Brady, who played almost his entire career in New England, where structure was at the heart of what that organization did and how they operated, for him to go into a situation like this year, where there's just a lot of unsettled feelings. There's just a feeling of untidiness, that it's unkempt. It can't be easy for him. And then you've got the things going on in his own life. First, the injuries on the field, the shoulder, the finger. Then you've got him talking about the fact that, he's really feeling the aches and pains of the season in like the second week. Then you've got what's going on off the field with him and Giselle, both reportedly getting divorce attorneys. Then they say, well, all right, let's go get some receiving help, and we'll go get Cole Beasley to help out our team. Okay, yay, let's bring in Cole Beasley. And he's there for about 5 minutes and then says, yeah, you know what, I'm out of here, I retire. And again, it's just more of that unsettled nature to what's going on with this team. Every week, this team is in the news for something that's not even happening on the field, it feels like. And that's not what Tom Brady is accustomed to. And frankly, that's not what winning teams have. So Cole Beasley today decides to retire. His agent, Joel Turner, told ESPN, and this is a noticeable quote, He's ready to be with his family after playing 11 seasons, and it's time to be a full-time dad and husband. His wife and kids are still back home in Texas. They came out for the first game, went through the evacuation last week, which the Tampa Bay organization hasn't received near the credit they deserve for the way they handled. Nothing but first class by the Glazer family. He doesn't want to be separated from them anymore. He loves his wife and kids and wants to be with them. That's what you got from the agent talking to ESPN. That was the big chunk. That's the big headline coming out of it. And to me, that almost feels like a subtle jab at Tom Brady. You're 45, dude. You've been away from your kids all this time. Go home. That's what it feels like to me. And then his agent talked about his career a little bit. How he played at SMU, no all-star game invites, all of that stuff. And he had a nice 11-year career. Had 82 catches in 2020. Doesn't need to play anymore. Guys don't need to play. And look, Tom Brady, this is what makes guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, who played late into his career, it's what makes these guys, and it tells you how much they love the game. It's the fact that they don't need to play for the money anymore. And it's why I continue to say I think more and more guys are going to retire younger, because the amount of money you can make in a short period of time, if you're smart, and as Marshawn Lynch likes to say, if you save your chicken, you don't have to play this game for very long and subject yourself to the pounding that a guy like Cole Beasley, 11 years in, says, I don't need to take this anymore. Rob Gronkowski never spent a dime of what he made throughout his playing career. I'll repeat that. Never spent a dime. Lived off his endorsement money alone. That's a smart dude. Everybody likes to think Gronk, funny, aloof, the Subway commercials where he doesn't read the prompter right and all that stuff. It's all shtick. It's all an act. The guy's really smart. Because anybody who could be that disciplined and that controlled when it comes to how they manage the financial aspect of this business, that's a smart guy. He's got you all fooled. He ain't a dummy. And a lot of these guys, I assume, are probably doing smart things with their money. I'm sure there's a certain number that aren't. That's why a guy like Antonio Cromartie had to play until the wheels fell off, because he had 1 million kids, and with 1 million kids comes a little bit of responsibility. And they weren't all from the same women. So you got some taking care of to do. But and Cole Beasley, that is a subtle shot at Tom Brady. Make no mistake about it. He's ready to be with his family after 11 seasons, and it's time to be a full-time dad and husband. I got news for you. Tom Brady's just about missed out on the whole full-time dad and husband thing. He's been married for, 15 years? All of that time he's been playing. And his kids have grown up basically with a part-time dad. And again, I'm not saying that makes him a bad dad. I'm not saying it makes him a bad parent. I'm sure he's going to be able to provide at a level for them that 0.00000001 of children will be provided for in such a way. I'm not banging on him for that. But there's still something to be said for knowing at what point, okay, it's time to go home and be the family man. I get it. It's a drug for him. We've talked about this on the show the last week. But all the signs are there. I still am left wondering if this thing doesn't get better. And again, the schedule helps them. But if this thing doesn't get better, does he just say, you know what, I'm cutting my losses? Or does he feel like even if it's not making the playoffs and going 8-9, or 9-8, or just barely winning the division and getting bounced in the wild card round of the playoffs, whatever, that Tom Brady feels like he's got to see this through to the end of the season regardless, no matter how it looks when it's all said and done. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. What happened to Aaron Judge's 60-second home run ball? Breaking news from the NBA. It's all next on the Cash In on Sports Map Radio. Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you respond when I yelled? I didn't hear anything. Having a good time hanging out with you guys on this Wednesday night. The Cash In on Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. Tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football. We'll have you covered on the live betting side in the second half of the game. Next couple of nights are kind of interesting. Tonight and tomorrow night, because you got no baseball. Playoffs start on Friday. So Friday night, obviously, we'll have you covered here on the show. But it's going to be weird with no baseball for the next two nights. The season's over for whatever, 24 teams, 25 teams, 23 teams. My math stinks. But for most of the country, tomorrow they wake up and the baseball season's done. And you've just invested yourself, for the last 6 months or whatever, and the season's done. That's it. It's over. I can't wait for the playoffs, though, man. I was looking through some baseball postseason odds, and we'll do it in the third hour tonight. I want to get deep into some fun odds, and it's there's one particular team that if you're gonna take a flyer on, I'll give them to you and we'll do that coming up in the third hour of the show tonight. Nando DeFino is going to jump on with us coming up about 2 hours from now, and we'll get some thoughts with him on the odds and fantasy stuff from a bunch of different stories and a bunch of different leagues. We'll get into that with him coming up a little later on. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you are not tweeting at me, go on Twitter, follow me at the back page, and then send me a little note. We're going to do a giveaway at the end of the show. We do it every week here on the program. We will give something away. Free. But you got to be following me on Twitter. Say hi, and you're entered to win. Simple as that. That's coming up a little later on. Aaron Judge hit home run number 62 last night, and so much of the conversation leading up to it was, A, when would he get it? Would teams pitch to him? Yada, yada, yada. And so much of the conversation was, if a fan caught it, how much would that home run ball be worth? So many of us wondered. You know, if a fan caught it, would they hold it ransom? Would they give it up? The guy who caught 61 just said, or the guy who caught number 60 just basically handed it over for nothing. And, you know, for Judge, that was really cool. But 61 never made it into the stands. It went over the wall, but not in the stands. So the Yankees and Judge got that ball. Or the Hall of Fame will get it, or whoever. And then 62 was caught by a fan named Corey Yeomans of Dallas, Texas, who's got a pretty decent living. This isn't a guy struggling for money. Works for Fisher Investments, one of the local branches there in Dallas. He's a VP, so he makes pretty good money. He's not struggling for cash, if you know what I mean. And he basically caught a $2 million lottery ticket out in left field last night. Made a good catch on it, too. And was basically immediately offered $2 million by auction house Memory Lane. They told the AP on Wednesday that Yeomans, the fan who caught the Judge 60-second home run ball, was offered $2 million for the ball that broke the home run record. So far, Yeomans not responding to texts or emails. According to the AP, J.P. Cohen, who's president of that sports memorabilia auction house, he told the AP, quote, "I feel the offer is way above fair if he is inclined to sell it." And that's a huge price tag. The record price for a home run ball, do you know what it is? I'll give you a second. Okay, that's it. $3 million. Mark McGwire's 70th home run ball from 98. $3 million. And so a lot of people think that the number for the Judge ball might actually be a low ball offer. But a lot of people now wondering what this guy's going to do with the baseball. He may just choose to do nothing with it. If he's smart, he just holds it. If you don't need money right away, like if it was me and I caught that, I'd sell it and invest it in my company. Decibel 88. I would invest and, you know, put it into my own company and try to make my company the best I could using that $2 million. Maybe I should have gone and sat in the seats at Globe Life Field on Tuesday night. Maybe I blew it. But fans are within their rights to hang on to the ball, and it could sit in their basement. They could store it. It's been authenticated. Everybody knows it's his. He's got the real one. What's he going to do with it? Oh, by the way, he's the second most famous person in his own marriage. His wife, Bree Amaranthus, is a former Bachelor contestant, and now she's a Sports Illustrated reporter. So this guy's already living a pretty good existence. Yankees are probably hoping he'll return the ball. Cohen says that Memory Lane has a great relationship with the Yankees. and he'd be willing to loan the ball to the team for an exhibit, which his company has done in the past. Judge, he says he doesn't care. Says he's got bigger things to worry about. He says, I don't know where it's at. We'll see what happens with that. It would be great to get it back, but there's a souvenir for a fan. He made a great catch out there, and they've got every right to it. Does Aaron Judge ever say the wrong thing, by the way? I mean, he's Derek Jeter, only a lot larger. I mean, the guy he does not ever get it wrong. Always says the right thing. And I say that I've said this before about the Yankees, not to linger on this too long. But they were lucky when Mariano Rivera left. And they still were really good at the closer spot. They had a couple of different guys come in, and they still were able to close out games a lot better than most teams. And a lot of teams don't have that luxury. They struggle forever to find a good closer. And they've won, they've basically been in the playoffs for what, the last 24, 25, 26 years? With what, one or two exceptions? And yeah, I know they spend money, and that's fine. But to go from Derek Jeter, who basically ended his career when Aaron Judge was starting his, to be able to go from Derek Jeter to the Aaron Judge era, and Aaron Judge is going to be the next Yankee captain. I think in the offseason he gets $300 to $400 million, and he winds up the next Yankee captain. To be able to go from Derek Jeter to Aaron Judge, again, how many organizations are that lucky? It's like the Packers being able to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. How many organizations are that fortunate? Or Joe Montana to Steve Young? There aren't a lot of organizations that get that lucky. And to some degree, it is luck. So I'm interested to see what this guy does with the baseball. If I had to guess, I think he's going to hang on to it. If he gets any good advice, if that dude gets good advice, he's probably hanging on to it. From Aaron Judge to where Aaron Judge is from, the Bay Area. See, I made that segue work. Controversy coming out of the Bay Area with regard to one of the NBA's golden franchises, the Golden State Warriors, where there is a possibility that one of the star players on that team could be facing a suspension, internal discipline, if you will. And I've asked this question before. I get the fact that they've won championships with the guy. And you hate breaking up the core of those championship teams. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Remember, they won before Durant, they've won after Durant. I'm not talking about that. Those three have been at the core of this title run, this somewhat dynastic group that the Warriors have put together. But the most volatile of those three, without question, throughout the time of this team's success, has been Draymond Green. And yet again, Draymond Green is the source of angst for the Warriors organization. And you have to wonder, when is it going to be too much for them? Where will they draw the line? When will they figure out that the headaches are not worth what he gives the organization? When does that time come? Is this it? There was a physical altercation, according to sources talking to The Athletic, and Shams Charania and Anthony Slater are reporting on it, amongst others. There was a beef between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Heated interaction is how it's been termed. It escalated. Green forcefully struck Poole and needed to be separated swiftly. Green and Poole came chest to chest, with both players pushing and shoving each other prior to Green's escalation of the physical altercation. The Warriors stopped practice, tried to settle things down. in the locker room area. But it seems, according to the reports, there's going to be some internal discipline. And apparently, these two have jawed at each other before. And this time around, according to the reporting on it, the team's management and leadership believes that a line was crossed. And how much longer do you let this go? How many more times does the Warriors organization allow these sorts of missteps from Draymond Green to go? Whether it's fighting with his own team, fighting with other players, the technical fouls, whatever you want to get into. At some point, the risks with him don't seem to match the reward, does it? Jordan Poole's part of the future of this organization. You want to keep guys like Jordan Poole, those glue guys. You want those guys. Those guys that can come off the bench or start. And he really elevated his game to another level last year. Do you want to get into a situation where you push him to a point where he says, I just want out? And for what? Draymond Green's not going to be around much longer anyway. He's already got his eyes on his next career, which is probably in broadcasting. I've always felt like Draymond Green got way too much credit for the Warriors' success. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's an all-time great. I think he's one of the loudest guys on the court. But I don't think it often matches what he is on the court. And yet again, the Warriors are in this situation where they're going to have to figure out how to deal with a Draymond Green distraction. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of days. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, do so. At the back page, let me know what you think. NBA preseason is in full swing. I'm not running through scores and spreads because it's the preseason. If you're betting on NBA preseason, you are a degenerate. You've got problems that I can't help you with. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this hour, tell you what we got coming up next hour. A fun hour in store for you on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page at SportsMap Radio. Thanks for being along for the ride on this Wednesday night. Next hour of the show, talking about fans behaving badly and then whining about it. Human behavior. So interesting to watch. I've had a chance to spend some time living abroad for large swaths of time, and there are some stories that are just uniquely American. That there's just things that can only happen in this country. And I'm not banging on the U.S. I'm born and raised here, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life here, although you never know. And there's just some things that you see, and they just boggle the mind. You can't believe them. And like I said, they're uniquely American stories. We'll get into that coming up in the next hour of the program. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Tony Casillas, Cowboys Hall of Famer, former defensive standout. Tony Casillas will join us to talk Cowboys and a little bit more about the NFL. We'll do that at 11:40 p.m. Eastern, 8:40 p.m. Pacific. 10:40 p.m. Dallas time. If you're a Cowboys fan, you want to listen to that. We'll have that coming up for you. NBA MVP odds and betting. We got that covered for you in the next hour. I said last night, some interesting preseason stories about how GMs feel about certain NBA players. We'll get into that in the next hour. But stick around. More to do in the next hour of the Cash In. I'm glad you're with us. I'm Jason Page at Sports Map Radio. Another hour starts right now on Sports Map Radio and this Sports Map Radio app. It's easy to download. Real simple. Then you just turn it on and press play. Our first week on the air in the Big D, 97.1 The Freak. Hello to our friends tuning in there. In this hour, Tony Casillas will stop by, the former Dallas Cowboys great, a guy who knows a thing or two about winning Super Bowls, knows what the Cowboys mean in that market. We'll get some thoughts with him on the Dak Prescott situation, also some other bigger NFL questions and topics to get into. And I don't know if anybody saw it today, but I want to get into it coming up here in a couple of minutes, this Joe Burrow story about concussions, because, at the same time that we're waiting to see what happens with Tua Tagovailoa and his situation and meeting with medical investigators who are looking into the way that his concussion situation was handled over the last couple of weeks. Talk about that with Tony Casillas coming up a little later on in the hour. And Joe Burrow made some news on that front. So we'll get to that in this hour of the program. I also want to take a look at the baseball odds for the World Series because, there are very few times in sports where teams are inevitable. So I'm not breaking any ground here when I say that I don't feel like anybody is inevitable. Even the 110-plus win Los Angeles Dodgers, to me, are not inevitable. The year the Yankees won the World Series and won 114 games, that felt inevitable. There aren't many years in baseball, though, where a team feels inevitable. This year, I think anybody can win. And I got a dark horse for you when it comes to the betting odds for the World Series that I would say run out and lay a wager on. Don't put your whole paycheck on it, but a wager, yes. But when we return, the comments from Joe Burrow that made news around the football world today and why this concussion issue ain't going away. It's next on the Cash In on Sports Map Radio.
don't think there's a lot you can do when a player is, if he's withholding symptoms or he wants to go back out there. I don't think there's a lot you can do when it's a tough spot. If he's withholding symptoms or he wants to go back out there.
Okay, there are certain stories, and I would even venture to say most
players. If he's withholding symptoms or he wants to go back out there.
Okay, there are certain stories, and I would even venture to say.
Coming up in about 30 minutes, Tony Casillas, the Super Bowl winning defensive standout with the Cowboys, former. He's been retired a while. Joins the program and get some thoughts from him on Cooper Rush, the Dak Prescott situation, how the team is handling that thus far, and what they do going forward. And not just that, but talk about this Cowboys team, because I said it in the opening hour tonight, and I'll say it again. And I don't want to get Cowboys fans' hopes up by saying it. I think the Cowboys and 49ers are strong picks right now if you're looking at Super Bowl odds. You start getting deep into the futures betting in the NFL. And I don't know what their current number is. I could probably pull it up within a matter of 15 seconds here. But if you look at those two teams, with those are two Super Bowl caliber defenses. While they don't have the offense of a Buffalo or the offense of a Kansas City, or either of them have the quarterback of a Brady or a Rodgers or a Mahomes, these are two teams, to me, that are poised to do some things, potentially. If their quarterbacks just don't screw it up for them, basically. If you don't make mistakes. San Francisco right now is plus 1,700 to go to the Super Bowl. Now, in comparison, Buffalo is the top pick as far as Super Bowl outright betting. They're plus 450. The Chiefs are plus 700, and then you go down the list a bit. San Francisco is plus 1,700. The Dallas Cowboys are plus 2,400, which, again, in betting parlance means you throw $100 down on the Cowboys, they win, you get 2,400. You're telling me that's not worth it with what you've seen out of this defense? In a year where I think there is not an inevitable NFL team, there might be a few teams we think are favorites, but are they unbeatable? No. We watched the Chiefs lose to the Colts. We saw Buffalo go into Miami and lose, and yeah, the Eagles are undefeated, but are you a believer yet in Jalen Hurts making this quantum leap and becoming a Super Bowl winning quarterback this year? Of course you're not. So anyway, we'll get into some of that coming up in the next segment. But I want to talk about what Joe Burrow said today, because players are speaking out, and the NFL has to be cringing when they hear this conversation. I bet you they wish that all of these players would just stop talking about concussions. Talk about your game the week ahead. Talk about your play on the field. Talk about your favorite charity. Talk about anything but concussions. On the Colin Cowherd podcast that published earlier today, a kid who went to the Super Bowl last year, and he really is a kid, 25-year-old Joe Burrow, talked about the head trauma that he has experienced as part of professional football and said he's had entire halves of games erased from his memory. I mean, that's not scary to these guys. That's not enough to shake you to the point that you say, you know what? Man, is it worth it? He talked about his own personal experiences and said he sustained at least one concussion. It's hard to say, Burrow said when asked what it felt like. You start to ring a little bit. I've never had any lasting effects from a concussion. I've been hit and forgot the rest of the game before. That's happened a couple of times, he said. But I've had one where I've never had one where I have headaches for a week or where I have symptoms where I have headaches for like a week. But listen to this. This is a quote. I've had some hits where I don't remember the second half or I don't remember the entire game. Or I know I got a little dizzy at one point, but nothing long lasting. This is the brain we're talking about. This is brain trauma, real head trauma. Burrow said he suspects everybody has had a concussion that plays this game. NFL Players Association opened an investigation to look into Miami's handling of the Tua Tagovailoa injury. And that's still being looked at. Even while he went out on the field and played, that investigation still wasn't finished. Players Union has fired the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant who was involved in the decision to let Tua go back out on the field in that original Sunday game. Then we saw what happened last Thursday night. Burrow said you can make all the rules you want to make the game as safe as you possibly can. But there's an inherent risk and danger with the game of football. You have 300-pound men running 20 miles an hour, and that's real. Trying to take your head off while you're standing still, trying to ignore it and find receivers that are open, and then sometimes you have to go run to try to get a first down. It's part of the game, I think, part of what we signed up for. You're going to have head injuries. You're going to tear your ACL. You're going to break your arm, Burrow said. That's the game we play. That's the life that we live, and we get paid handsomely for it. I think going into every game, we know what we're getting ourselves into. And that, I have to say, that's a tremendous job from Joe Burrow. You know, at 25, having that understanding and that grasp of the realities of the NFL. I've said this a million times before. I did a commentary years ago on this for MSNBC when they asked me to do one. I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it again. If you play in the NFL, if you make a choice, after everything that happened with the concussion controversy, the lawsuits against the league, the information that came out, everything we now know about brain trauma, and I still don't think we know everything there is to know, but everything we do know, with everything we do know now, if you're an NFL player, you know the game. You know the score. You know the consequences potentially for playing this game. That you may leave the game far differently than you came into it. It's the deal with the devil. It really is. It's the proverbial deal with the devil. I'm going to give you millions of dollars. I'm going to give you fame for a decade or 5 years or 4 years or however long your career is. And then one day, it's a flip of the coin. You might just be fine when you're 50, and you might be sipping peas through a straw when you're 50. Could go either way. Good luck. No, it's the same thing with NASCAR. How often, once a year, once every couple of years, you hear about a guy getting killed either in NASCAR, some off-road racing thing, motorcycles, truck racing, F1. Somebody will get killed. And we'll do the in memoriam, and we'll all get to a hushed silence, and they'll show his face on the screen, and he leaves behind a wife of 10 years and 2 kids. It's so terrible. And it is. It's awful. It's awful. But when you get into that sport and you decide that you're going to drive a vehicle at 200 miles an hour, 2 or 3 cars wide, with just inches separating these vehicles between each other, I got news for you. Bad things can happen when you choose to do that for a living. I am far more likely to feel sorry for the firefighter or police officer or first responder who's running towards danger for far less money than a professional athlete that does that and gets millions of dollars. And in most cases does walk away from the game okay. But in some instances, you're sipping peas through a straw, dude. Sorry. It's the choice you made. Joe Burrow's literally telling you at the age of 25, he's gone through complete games and not remembered any of it. Can you imagine that? Going through a complete game and not being able to remember it, or a half of football and not being able to remember it? This is the sport these guys signed up for. So maybe, I got so mad last week at this Tua Tagovailoa story last Thursday night. And upon doing some reflection, just sitting here talking to you guys, maybe I shouldn't be upset. Because if the players accept it as part of the price of doing business, so to speak, why should I care? Why should I be upset? Why should I invest my emotions into a player getting hurt? Oh my God, it's so terrible to watch. But they don't care. Why should I? Why should I be so upset? 1-800-224-2004. 1-800-224-2004. You tweet at the show at the back page. Send me your tweets. We do something every Wednesday on the show. It's our Wednesday giveaway day. When we come back, I will share what we are giving away on the show tonight. Cool little prize. You have a chance to win it. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter at the back page. Send me a tweet saying hello. You're entered to win. We'll draw the winner at the end of the show. Simple as that. Tony Casillas coming up in about 17 minutes on the Cowboys and the rest of the NFL. I got some baseball playoff odds I want to get into, and more. Don't go anywhere. Jason Page, it's the Cash In Sports Map Radio. Hey, Austin. 13 minutes from now, Tony Casillas, the former Cowboys defensive standout, Super Bowl winner, stops by the show. We still haven't figured out a way to get down to Dallas to do the show. We got to get that figured out. They got that new station down there, 97.1 The Freak. And we want to go down there and do some shows. Go down for a week, hang out. Go say hi to the peeps down there. We love talking to new listeners all the time and talking to new fans. So we got to figure out a way to make that happen. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can. At the back page is the way to do that. And tonight is the night you should be following the show. Always go to Twitter, follow me at the back page if you're not doing it already. Because if you do, we're giving stuff away. Every Wednesday, we give away something. Oh, and hold on, here it is. If you are a football fan, and even if you don't like collecting cards, who knows, you may open this thing and pull something really wild. This is a 2022 Panini Chronicles Draft Picks box. It's a blaster box. It's being given to one random Twitter follower who is following me by the end of the show. Go to Twitter, follow me at the back page, send me a note saying hello. We'll give it away at the end of the show. Simple as that, but you got to be following me because we want you to, engage and interact with the show on Twitter at the back page if you feel so inclined. And if you don't want to win, you can still follow me anyway. But we're going to give it away before the end of the show. We'll also talk some sports betting and fantasy odds with Nando DeFino coming up a little over an hour from now. We'll get some thoughts with him on the big stories of the sports betting and gambling worlds. The baseball postseason begins on Friday. And I got to tell you, I was a bit surprised when I saw one particular team. I get it. Look, if you're a wild card team, your road to the World Series is not easy. I respect that baseball has set up this postseason in such a way that they are going to respect the top division winners. The third best division winner still has to play in this wild card round. Some people may not be crazy about that. I think it's a good rule. It incentivizes teams to play and try to win throughout the entire regular season and not sort of mail it in. But in looking at the MLB World Series odds, the odds to win the World Series, one team jumped out at me, and not because they were at the top of the list, but because of their odds being at the bottom of the list. They're playing some of the best baseball going into the postseason. They've got one of the best young players in the game. And sometimes young players wilt under the pressure and the spotlight of a big moment. Julio Rodriguez is not going to be one of those guys. Cal Raleigh behind the plate hitting dingers. Carlos Santana. They've got good pitching. And they're going to have home field advantage. Or rather, they'll play on the road, I should say. Playing in Toronto for the first round. But, there isn't anything about this Seattle Mariners team that tells me they're going to wilt. They are plus 3,000 to win the World Series. And again, in betting parlance, that means if you wager $100 on them and they win the World Series, you win, you guessed it, $3,000. It's not a terrible bet in my mind. I think a wild card team can run the gauntlet and win the World Series. I don't think there's any team, even the Dodgers who won a zillion games. To me, there is not a team in this group that is inevitable. Even the 111-win Dodgers, the 106-win Astros, 101-win Braves and Mets, doesn't matter. Nobody seems inevitable to me. The 99-win Yankees, who, by the way, didn't get to 100 even though I said they would. They missed it by a game, lost the last two to finish the season. But not even the Yankees. None of these teams feel inevitable. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, I would take Seattle, who's going off at plus 3,000, before a division winner like the Guardians. The Toronto Blue Jays are plus 1,600 as a wild card team. They are the wild card team in the American League with the best shot to win the World Series. If you're wondering about the complete odds, here they are. The Dodgers are plus 300. Houston is plus 380. Atlanta is plus 500. The Yankees are plus 550. The Mets are plus 950. Wow. It's a big drop-off from where the Yankees are. It's kind of surprising. But again, it's probably because of that extra round they're going to have to play in order to advance through this postseason. Mets are at home for a 3-game series, the entire 3-game series against the San Diego Padres. That's going to be an entertaining series. Toronto is plus 1,600. The Cardinals are plus 1,700. The Tampa Bay Rays are plus 2,000. And then you have the Guardians, Padres, Phillies, and Mariners all at plus 3,000. And Vegas thinks, by the way, that the World Series winner is coming out of the National League right now. Because the betting odds for who wins the World Series, which league, is the National League at minus 136. But I'll just say this, and do not discount this. I think those National League playoff series are going to be bloodbaths, figuratively speaking. I think you're going to see some long, drawn-out, very competitive series. It's not to say that can't happen in the American League, but there is so much talent in the National League. Those teams are going to be beat up pretty good by the time they get to what'll be something close to a November Classic rather than an October series. And then if it's the MLB World Series winner and which division wins the World Series, National League West, as you would expect, has the best odds at plus 240. National League East has the next best odds at plus 280. The American League East at plus 320. The American League West at plus 320. The National League Central at plus 1,700. And the American League Central at plus 3,200. Again, telling you everything you need to know about the strength of those divisions as we sort of went throughout the entire season. 1-800-224-2004. Who do you like to win the World Series? You got today and tomorrow to tell us. 1-800-224-2004. If you don't feel like calling in, tweet it at me at the back page, and we'll tell people on the air who you are picking to win the World Series out of the teams that remain. I love this expanded postseason. I'm a huge fan. Give me your thoughts on that. Tomorrow we'll go through the division series and these I shouldn't say division series, but these playoff matches, the wild card rounds, and we'll run through the odds and give you a little preview on who we like in those 4 wild card series, which kick off on Friday. Tampa Bay in Cleveland to play the Guardians, a 3-game series that Cleveland gets to host. Guardian fans haven't come out all year, and that place will be packed for all 2 or 3 games of that series. You can guarantee it. Cleveland fans, fair weather. They don't come out all season to support that team, but they'll be out there. You can count on it. Mariners and Blue Jays, Padres and Mets, Phillies and Cardinals, your other series. Tony Casillas joins us on the other side, former Cowboys great, a Super Bowl winner. We'll talk Cowboys, NFL, and more as we continue on this Wednesday edition of The Cash In. I'm Jason Page. Happy to have you with us on Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app.
A 100% no. When I say no, that
Oh, cool. All right.
A 100% no. When I say no, that means that 100% no. When I say no, that means that 100% no. When I say no, that means that 100%.
Why is that happening? Oh, I know why. Uh.
100% no. When I say no, that means Dak Prescott is going to be a $40 million quarterback. I think Jerry does it all the time. Jerry does it all the time. I think we all draft when we all take that draft when we all take. But I think, look, 100%.
We continue on this Wednesday with former Cowboys great Super Bowl champion Tony Casillas. Tony, my man, if you're running the Cowboys, is there any chance Dak Prescott isn't the QB when he's healthy and ready to play?
100% no. When I say no, that means that Dak Prescott is going to be your $40 million quarterback. I think it's just. Jerry does it all the time, Jason. I think we all, we set the draft and we all take the Chiefs. But I think when he comes back, they kind of continue the trend, the offensive running, and it's a great problem to have. I don't think Jerry says a lot of things, but honestly, I don't think that he even thought that they would be set there 3-1 and the way things are going. But I mean, when you have a defense, that plays with that much ferocity and leads the NFL in sacks and negative plays, and that's even a better thing to have. So, now I think Dak's going to be your quarterback, and I think everybody overreacted in the Dallas Cowboy fan nation after the first game when they got beat by the Bucs, but I think they understand it. And look, Jason, you got to get credit to Mike McCarthy. I mean, he's got to take some responsibility for this. So I think that it's going in a great direction. And Cooper Rush was just a diamond right now that they found in the rough.
But, I mean, look, you've played this game. You played it for a long time at a high level. You've seen these sorts of situations, I'm sure, whether it's at the collegiate level or at the NFL level. You get a guy like Cooper Rush who's playing the way he has, and something just clicks. And who knows? He may not even be as good as Dak Prescott physically. I don't think anybody would argue that he is. But sometimes do just certain guys, whether it's character related, whether it's just certain intangibles, that for some reason it just clicks better than the guy who is making $40 million? Well,
Jason, I think we're judging Cooper Rush on the mistakes that he hasn't made. And he hasn't made threw an interception last week, but he hasn't made a lot of mistakes, and he's made enough plays to get the job done. And I think that's what people were hoping, were really kind of skeptical. And this is a guy that cleared waivers, and Dallas was able to re-sign him. No one else they didn't think that he could play in the National Football League, or they didn't know how, what he won 2 games last year, and so, or it was 2-0 before, Dak got injured this year. But so I think that's what people are judging this whole Cooper Rush, and if there's any controversy, because he hasn't made a mistake. And I'm sure whenever Dak comes back and he goes out there and he has a couple of misfires, people are going to say, oh, well, maybe we should, consider another quarterback, in the fact that if they end up losing. But I think that's what we're looking at. We're just measuring off the mistakes that Cooper Rush hasn't made, and I think a lot of people thought, well, the sky's falling. It hasn't. And they put him in an offense where the running game at times has gotten going, and the defense has given him a lot of opportunities, and he's been able to make those throws. And you're right. I mean, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, he's very assertive. Obviously, understands the game, and he has great chemistry with the guys in the huddle, and that says a lot about his character.
Former Dallas Cowboy Tony Casillas joining us here on the Cash In Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. Can the team learn something? And Mike McCarthy, look, say what you want about him. A lot of people like to take their shots at him. He's won a Super Bowl. A lot of people will start to ask this question, I think. Does the 3 or 4 or 5 games, however many they wind up with Cooper Rush before Dak Prescott returns, does it teach this team something about, even with Dak, a potential path to victory that even with Dak, maybe the idea might be, well, we can open it up a little more. Maybe they don't have to. Maybe this defense is so good, Tony, that, they can win scoring 21 points, 20 to 24 points a game. They don't have to be a juggernaut offensively.
Jason, that's a great point, too, because if you have a defense that can keep an offense to under 20 points, you're going to have an opportunity to win a lot of games. And I think that's the narrative. I think more or less than I would say the Cooper Rush. I think that's a great story right now because of what he's been able to do and win 3 games, and they're playing really good. But I think the defense is really kind of taking this team to a level that they didn't anticipate. I mean, I thought last year when Trayvon Diggs had 11 interceptions, I thought, well, how much better can the defense become? And he's got 2, but when you look at how good they are, 13 sacks lead over 13 sacks in the National Football League, lead that category, and just really just get after it. Really it sets the trend for the whole team, because I just know as a player, you're that confident in what you can do, and then it carries over to the other phase. All of a sudden the offense knows, hey, our defense is going to bail us out. We need to help them out, but we can count on them. And they really haven't been that vulnerable to that defensively because they've been so strong. And, yeah, I think if you have a good defense like that kind of old style, which I kind of like, you can keep your offense in the game. And, you got enough playmakers, CeeDee Lamb and these guys that are Noah Brown, guys that you haven't heard about, and then sprinkling in the running game, hopefully. Then, to me, that's how you win games. And I think that shows a lot again about what Cooper Rush, his leadership ability, and then defensively, how it's like, okay, our guy's down. Dak's down, but the next man up, he's going to lead us. But guess what? We're going to play our ass off even more, and we're going to give ourselves a chance to win every game because we're going to take it in our control.
You really kind of marvel at when you look around the league. There's one thing that stands out to me, and it's the fact that there really are not. You look around, and there's really only 3 or 4 teams that have Super Bowl caliber defenses. And look, Bill Parcells said it all the time: defense wins championships. And you look at the Eagles and what they've done. You look at what the Cowboys have done, the 49ers. I think San Francisco, even with Jimmy G, if he limits his mistakes, extremely dangerous because these defenses are just so suffocating, Tony.
Yeah, and you heard Troy refer to that when they played, the Rams, and Jimmy G, just don't. Just keep the play calling enough where you're not making a mistake. You're not giving up field position. Do some really high percentage passes. Give it to Deebo Samuel and give it to one of your playmakers, and let's just keep moving. And I think that anytime you have a defense and you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, what other teams? You got Philly, which I think to me, they're pretty legit. But other than that, there's only 3 or 4 other teams that you mentioned that defensively that are playing even halfway close to what Dallas is doing now. And to me, when you game plan and you have guys like Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs that are playing in the back end and front end, that's scary, and that's multiple problems. And I'm saying that in a good way, multiple problems for the offense. And to me, that becomes a big issue.
Talking with Tony Casillas here on the Cash In on Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. So you think Philly's for real? You know what's crazy to me, though, looking at the NFC East? If before the season started I had said the Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles would have a combined 2 losses, you would have had me urinating in a cup. You would have thought I was crazy if I had said those 3 teams would have a combined 2 losses through 4 weeks. I mean, it's great. Again, it's why we love the NFL so much, Tony. You can't predict this stuff.
Well, especially in the NFC East, it's been really kind of down. It's kind of been a dog division. And, regardless of what these teams are doing early on, I think also too is that you want to start fast, and you really don't want to get behind where you have to win a lot of games. But if you can just kind of keep it around 500 and you can win a lot of games and get to the second half of the season, then that's where really the season is indicative of. I mean, that's where you figure out who you are, and then you find out what injuries you have and how you have to work around that, and your depth and what you have, guys filling in. You kind of find out a little bit about yourself. But I don't know. It's four games. It's a quarter of the season right now. I'm impressed with Philly. I think that they're doing some good things. They got great playmakers that play good defense. I'm really looking forward to that in 2 weeks, especially if the Cowboys can beat the Rams. I'm really looking forward to that matchup. That'll be a tremendous game.
Last one before I let you go, and it's completely removed from the Cowboys, but this, Tua Tagovailoa story has everybody talking about concussions. You hear Joe Burrow today saying he doesn't remember some games he played in high school and college, and a lot of players have talked about, and obviously you played in a much different era as it related to concussions. In your mind and in your assessment of where we are now versus where we were, and I am not being an apologist for the league in any stretch when I pose this question this way, it has come a long way in terms of player protection and player safety. At the same time, it just seems like this game is so inherently dangerous that no matter what they do, there's going to be guys that come out of this a lot worse off than they went into it.
Well, without a doubt, and I think the whole admission, I don't think the NFL would admit anything. That NFL concussion lawsuit that they lost, and, that was more pertaining to the generation of players like myself, and there was no protocol. You play through it. They really didn't care because they didn't really know. That's what they said. But when a guy can't remember the next day, then that's an issue. And it's just sad when you think about all that. And now with Tua, and really, how in the hell did they let him clear the protocol to go out and play? Because everyone, it wasn't a bad hit, but just seeing his body, the convulsions, and how scary that was to see that after all this, that a guy like that, the thing that the NFL was supposed to do, should do, always do, is protect their own. And to me, they didn't protect their own when they let him go out there. And that could have been pretty catastrophic. And so I think that while the NFL's like, okay, we're much better, safer, I think they've gotten a little maybe too comfortable maybe and like kind of going back to maybe their old ways. Like, okay, well, I think he's going to pass the protocol, but I'm not for sure, but he's good, but let's let him play. And I think with, today, especially the way the NFL with this protocol, to see that happen, I mean, that is scary to think, Jason. And look, I played on guys in my era, and even not too far long ago, there's a lot of times where you shouldn't have been on the field, but you just played through it because, the the team doctors and NFL said they didn't know any better. Well, we all know if you're, as I mentioned, you don't remember the whole week. That's a huge issue. So I think it all comes down to we need to have the best player out there, and now we're just kind of getting a little too comfortable. Maybe we don't kind of skate the borderline the rules. But when you have your guys like Joe Burrow coming out and talking, hopefully the NFL will listen because that should never happen in our game.
Tony Casillas, well said, my friend. Former Cowboys, Super Bowl champion defensive tackle. Listen, always good to catch up with you, my friend. Hopefully we'll see you when we're down in Dallas soon enough.
All right, Jay. Thanks a lot for having me, buddy.
We'll wrap up this hour of the Cash In on the other side. Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. Told you I'd get to break fast. That last answer, though, was so long. And I'll never, if somebody's got something really good to say about something important, if I had to, I would have figured out a spot to edit the interview. The problem for me in editing interviews, normally it wouldn't be an issue, but the fact that it's video and audio, it's hard for me to edit a thing without it looking edited, Getting set to put the wraps on hour number 2. If you're not following me on Twitter, do it now. Sean in Oklahoma City did it. DSTXEX. I don't know how you would say that as a name, but thanks for following. If you are following me on Twitter, you're entered to win this box of 2022. See if I got it right. 2022 Chronicles NFL draft pick cards. We will give this away at the end of the final hour of the show. So about an hour from now, we'll tell you who the winner is. By the way, update on that Draymond Green story. Chris Haynes, senior NBA insider for Yahoo Sports, TNT sideline reporter. Chris Haynes says that Draymond Green was apologetic in aftermath of the altercation with Jordan Poole tonight, but there was a buildup stemming from teammates noticing a change in Poole's behavior throughout camp, with the guard on the verge of securing a lucrative extension. And it sounds like Draymond Green could be looking at some real action from the Warriors organization. Suspension, fine. Reportedly he punched Jordan Poole during practice this morning. He will not finish his career as a Golden State Warrior. I'll tell you that right now. There's no way that story has a happy ending between those two sides. At some point, he'll be somewhere else. All right, another hour of the Cash-In is right around the corner. Where are you going? Stay right here. More to do on Sports Map Radio and the Sports Map Radio app. It's so loud. Final hour of a Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. Where'd the first 2 hours go? I have no idea. Our executive producers, Vladimir Lewisant. Our producer-engineer back in Houston is Austin Rodriguez, and I am Jason Page. In this hour of the program, we'll hear from Nando DeFino, does a great job with Better Sports, also The Athletic on all things sports betting. We'll do a lot of betting stuff in this hour. We'll get into the Week 5 NFL odds. Did you know that quietly Blake Bortles retired earlier today? How about that? Played most of his career with the Jags. But this is what shocked me most. Blake Bortles is 30 years old, and he retired from playing in the NFL. It's kind of remarkable when you think about the fact that it doesn't feel like he's even played in a couple of years, and he was able to retire at the age of 30. And again, I talked about this earlier in the show. Why guys can retire early is because they make so much money. And Blake Bortles, this is the crazy part. You ready for this? Blake Bortles came in the league in 2014. Do you know how much money Blake Bortles made in his career? You don't think of Blake Bortles as some, record-breaking all-world quarterback. Had a nice career, few good years with the Jags. Do you know how much he made in his career? $47,658,000. That's why he can retire at 30 after 8 seasons, and quite honestly, he barely played in the last 3 of them. He had 1 year. I mean, you could basically look at $25, $26, $27 million in signing bonuses as why Blake Bortles was able to retire at the age of 30. Made $47 million. It's crazy. It's good money if you can get it, right? We're back with more of the cash in, some NFL MVP odds to talk about and more. NBA MVP odds too. Sports Map Radio. Oh my God, what is this dog doing? Hearing the whole segment. Christ. You heard that the whole segment. You couldn't come on. Really? Mike alive. The hell's he doing? 12 minutes past the hour. Tomorrow night, our usual Thursday night live betting extravaganza in Thursday night football. It's a fun hour and a half or so where we get to kind of live and die with every play, the live betting version of the cash in. So we're looking forward to bringing that your way. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can always tweet at us at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. We'll be joined later in the hour, about 30 minutes from now. Nando DeFino stops by from The Athletic, also from Better Sports. We'll get some thoughts with him on the sports betting and fantasy landscape. Maybe I'll get a question in on card collecting, because I think he's into that too from what I've done. I've never talked to him before. It's rare that, most of the time when we have guests on this show, it's people I know. It's people I've interacted with in the past. You heard us with Tony Casillas earlier. Tony's a guy I've been talking to for, a decade. So it's kind of cool when I get to talk to new people that we haven't really spoken to on the show before. So good booking by our executive producer, Vladimir Lewison. Tweet at the show at The Back Page. If you're not following me, do so, because at the end of the show, we're going to give away this box of 2022 Panini Chronicles draft pick blaster cards. Who knows? Could pull a one of one, something autographed. You never know. We give it away. End of the show. You have to be following me on Twitter, though, in order to be entered to win. Just got to follow me. Simple as that. Do that, you're entered to win. So that's coming up a little later on in the show. So I was thinking about this whole Draymond Green thing, and I really want to get somebody on about it. It kind of broke while we were on the air, so I wasn't able to get anybody on. I think tomorrow we're going to have to talk to somebody, though, because this is sort of a, when you've got players confiding in the media and saying it's sort of a situation where they have to punish him, where they have to give him some sort of sanction for what he did to Jordan Poole, you get the sense that patience is wearing thin between some of those veteran guys that have been around Draymond for a while, who have probably had his back a ton over the years and are just tired of this shtick. That now they've got to answer questions about the latest stupid thing that Draymond Green did. And punching one of your teammates. Look, Michael Jordan did it, and he can get away with it. It's not right, but he can get away with it. He clocked Steve Kerr. You know why he can get away with it? Because he was Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant went after Samaki Walker. Friend of the show, by the way. I'm sure we'll talk to him at some point during the season. You know why why Kobe Bryant could do it? Because he was Kobe Bryant. Draymond Green's a good player. Draymond Green ain't either of those two guys. He's not going to get away with it. And he's going to feel the wrath of the organization in one form or another. And you know what? Maybe Jordan Poole's feeling himself. Jordan Poole's getting into a situation now where he could wind up getting a huge contract extension, made the big leap from the season before last to last season. And now Jordan Poole's saying, hey, I'm going to get mine. I want to prove that I'm somebody on this roster and in this league and on this team, and I'm important and I'm part of the mix. And him and Draymond go chest to chest. That stuff happens on teams. It happens in practices. There's nothing wrong with that. But it can't get to the point where you're punching your own teammate. And I don't know where he punched him, or if it was some big blow and he knocked him down or he knocked him out. Who knows? And it won't be any sort of sanction or fine from the league, but there will be a sanction of some sort coming from the Golden State Warriors. And I said it at the end of last hour. I'll say it again. Draymond Green will not finish his career with the Golden State Warriors. There's no way there winds up being some happy parting where he ends his career there. At some point, that shtick is going to get old. Maybe it's when they're not winning championships anymore. But there's no way that story has some amazing happy ending where he winds up finishing his career there. And, I'm sure someday it'll be healed, whatever happens, but at some point the organization's going to take a stand against him. Baseball notes real quick. We'll do NFL Week 5 odds coming up in a few minutes before we talk to Nando DeFino at 40 minutes past the hour. The Royals say bye-bye to Mike Matheny right after their last game of the season. That's a team with some young talent. We all know how good Bobby Witt Jr. is. They've got some good young pitchers. They've got some more talent on the farm. And this is how the Royals have had to do it for years. I don't know why they're firing Matheny. The talent isn't there for them to win now. Both them and the Tigers, it's going to be a slow build. In the case of the Tigers, they should have been a little better than they were this year, but unfortunately, some of their young prospects didn't really play as well as they thought they would. But Matheny's out. Don Mattingly managed his last game today for the Miami Marlins. It was a victory. And you have to think that Don Mattingly's going to land somewhere. I mean, remember, he got that Marlins team to the playoffs during the COVID-shortened year. And I know a lot of people will say, it's got a bit of an asterisk next to it. He wouldn't have gotten them there if it wasn't a shortened postseason. The fact of the matter is, though, he did. It was a shortened season for a lot of teams, and a lot of teams that may not have been all that good, as the Marlins were kind of a young team. Who knows? A lot of teams had that opportunity to sneak into the playoffs in a shortened season. Don Mattingly's team did. I'll say this. And look, I'm probably not saying anything that other people haven't thought. If the Yankees make an early exit from the postseason, you know what I'm thinking? If the Yankees wind up getting bounced from the postseason early, and I mean, they lose in the divisional round. If that should happen, and I don't think it will, but if that should happen, is Aaron Boone going to be the manager? He's got one more year left on his deal, I think. Or would they make a call to Don Mattingly? Because if the Yankees don't go and get Mattingly, somebody else will. And I think after the experience with the Marlins, I don't think Mattingly's going to want to manage another rebuilding situation. So teams like Texas, who should be better than their record was, but teams like Texas, is Phil Nevin, is he the answer with the Angels? Where do you go if you're the Yankees, if you decide to get rid of Aaron Boone? Maybe they let him coach next season and then decide if they're going to give him a contract extension. Of course, if he makes a deep run or the Yankees win a World Series, obviously he is cemented atop that organization as their manager. But, boy, Don Mattingly back in a Yankee uniform as the manager, I know the fans would embrace it. But it still remains to be seen how the Yankees do in this postseason. There's a whole bunch of managerial openings that are going to be out there. And it doesn't have to be one of these young guys. As much as I killed the White Sox for hiring Tony La Russa, and by the way, how'd that work out? And I'm not talking about his health issues. I'm not rooting for the guy to have poor health or anything like that. But let's just say it now. The managerial stint of Tony La Russa in Chicago was a failure. You didn't bring in Tony La Russa to make one short little playoff run last year. You brought in Tony La Russa to win you a World Series with a talented young roster and some good arms. And guess what? They didn't. So at the end of the day, Tony La Russa's tenure in Chicago, say what you want about him being a Hall of Famer, it was a failure. It was a bad hire by Jerry Reinsdorf, period, full stop. He did not get the job done. And Buck Showalter's only 11 years younger at 66, and look what he did with the Mets in his first season there. With a talented team. So it's not like it has to be some of these young guys that are in their 30s or 40s or just out of the game. And I think Miguel Cairo should get a shot at that managerial position with the White Sox. But Tony La Russa was never the answer. This was a glam hire. It was a show pony hire. And guess what? It didn't work out. And this is what happens when you have your owner making decisions that an owner shouldn't be making. Baseball people should have been making this decision, and there's no way smart baseball people thought Tony La Russa, so far removed from this game, was the right hire in Chicago for the White Sox. And you wasted 2 years of some guys that are in the prime of their careers. Heck, there's talk Jose Abreu. There were some people that thought he'd be retired at the end of this year and may not play next year. He's denying that, but you lost out on a couple of years of some good guys' careers because you went and got Tony La Russa. Just awful. Farewell to Albert Pujols if it is the end of his career. I have to think with the way he played in the second half of this year, he has to, on some level, be reconsidering. Finishes with 703 home runs. He did not play on Wednesday. Congratulations on an amazing career if it is the end of his career. I just can't imagine why some team, namely the Cardinals or somebody else, wouldn't want to say, we got a spot for you if you want to be a DH, a platoon guy like he was this year. Proved he can still play, proved he can still hit home runs, can still hit the ball. Why wouldn't you want Albert Pujols just for what he can do for some of your younger players? Just makes sense. Last but not least, Luis Arraez wins the AL batting title. He won it for the most part the last week of the season sitting on the bench, which is a joke. Oh, he could play on the last day and take one at bat. That hamstring must have been really bad. Aaron Judge misses out on the Triple Crown by 4 or 5 batting points. Still an amazing season for Judge. He's going to be your MVP. All right, when we return, Week 5 NFL betting odds, the early look. Who do we like? It's not Paige's Picks, but it's like Paige's Picks light. Give you some indications on who we're looking at for this Week 5 in the NFL. As we continue on the Cash In, I'm Jason Paige at Sports Map Radio. That's how we roll. Today's one. We will give it away at the end of the hour. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter at The Back Page. If you're not following me on Twitter, at The Back Page. And if you want to see the box I'm talking about, you have to turn on the video stream of the show. It's available on Twitter, on our Twitter feed at The Back Page. If you go and look, you'll see my live video feed on there. Also on our Decibel 88 YouTube page. You could find the live feed of the show there. On my Facebook page, The Jason Page, you'll find it there as well. Or even on Twitch, I think. Jason Page 77 is the Twitch name there. So if you want to check out the show, lots of different ways to do it. And again, if you're following me on Twitter by the end of the show, send me a little note, say hello. You'll be eligible to win this box of 2022 Chronicles draft picks from Panini. We'll give it away at the end of the show. Coming up in about 10 minutes, Nando DeFino from The Athletic and Better Sports Radio. And you can catch him on the Better Sports app. So we'll talk to him coming up a little over 10 minutes from now. Gambling, fantasy sports. Maybe I'll ask him a question about cards. All sorts of good stuff. All right, so it is Wednesday on the show. One of the things we like to do is a little looky-loo, a little look ahead at the Week 5 NFL spreads. So without any further ado, Week 5 in the NFL, just a look ahead, not Page's picks. We do that on Friday. But a little bit of a look ahead at Week 5, starting with the Thursday night game tomorrow night, the Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos. Look, two offensives that have sputtered, that have struggled. You have not seen the typical Jonathan Taylor. I was a buyer on him last week in fantasy, and he let me down after I got a huge performance from Geno Smith and was thinking I might make some money. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because Jonathan Taylor and a couple other guys wet the bed. That's what you get. The Colts have been sluggish at best offensively. We know what the Broncos have been offensively. They have struggled. They lost to the winless Raiders last week. They continue to have some problems in terms of moving the football, although they looked a little better at times last week, and you continue to see signs that maybe this team could get it together from a offensive standpoint. And again, it's such a long season now. I know it's only one more game. It used to be 16. Now it's 17 games. But you still get the sense that there's enough time with Denver. And if you have a slow start and you've basically, only scored 66 points through 4 games, and you could do the math. Now it's something like 16 points a game, a little more. And you're still 2-2. You've got time to get it figured out. And yes, I know the Chiefs are the class of that division, but after that, it's kind of up for grabs, and they could certainly be a wild card team still. And would you bet against Russell Wilson in the postseason? And the Broncos' defense is pretty good. But as far as that game goes, I wouldn't make a pick on it right now. It's tomorrow night, so I guess if I'm going to make a pick on it, I'd have to make it now, wouldn't I? I don't like it. I just don't like the game. And if I don't like a game, I'm not going to make a pick on it. There's some people that, I pick every game. And you probably win half and lose half. I don't see the point in it. In London on Sunday morning, the Giants and the Packers. Look, as much as I'm a Giants fan, and I'd love to find a reason to bet them, their offense is struggled. They've had injury issues now at the quarterback position with Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. Yes, Saquon Barkley's been a nice story. Yes, I think they can take the air out of the ball and try to limit the number of possessions that the Packers get. And yes, I'll even say this. The Giants' defense has been pretty good. It's only given up 71 points through the first 4 games. Again, do the math on it. It's at about 17.5 points a game, something like that. It's not terrible. I think they'll be in the game. But 7.5 to the Giants, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I guess I'd probably, if I had to take anybody right now, I would take the Giants. As long as it's at 7.5, if that line drops, which I think it will as we get closer to the game, if it falls to 7 or less, I would not touch it unless you feel like buying the hook at 7 and getting it at 7.5. Seahawks and the Saints. With New Orleans minus 5.5, I would absolutely blow it up with the Seahawks. New Orleans defense has been thus far. They've given up nearly 100 points through the first 4 games, and we know this Seahawks offense can score. Geno Smith, there are some people that like him, as a dark horse MVP pick. I'm not going that crazy. It's Geno Smith. But plus 5.5, I'm not normally big on, the Seahawks on the road, having to travel across the country. This might be one where I like them. Steelers and the Bills. We all know that Kenny Pickett's the new starting quarterback. This is the biggest line thus far of the NFL season, with the Steelers getting 14 on the road in Buffalo. Chance for a letdown from Buffalo? Perhaps. 14 points in the NFL when you see how close some of these games have been? Perhaps it's a bit much. I tend to stay away from big lines. If anything, maybe the under in this game. 46.5 is the total. Decide for yourself. Bears and the Vikings. With Chicago plus 7 on the road in Minnesota, there's no way I would ever bet the Bears. The only pick here, if you're going to bet it, is the Vikings. The easier bet to me is the money line at minus 320. Minnesota's been pretty good at home. Texans and the Jaguars. Look, Texans have not been as bad as a lot of people thought they would be. I don't think they're lighting up the world. They're one of the few winless teams at 0-3-1, but they've been competitive in a lot of these games. The Jaguars, meanwhile, look, they are one of the surprises of the NFL if you weren't paying attention to the preseason. Yeah, they're only 2-2, but I think a lot of people think they are now the best team in the AFC South. Minus 7 at home against the Texans. That's a tricky line unless you're buying the half point one way or the other. Dolphins and the Jets. With the Jets minus 3, Zach Wilson's debut last week was good enough to get a win for Gang Green, and they're 2-2 through the first 4 games. I think you'd sign up for that if you were a Jets fan. But the Dolphins, with Teddy Bridgewater on the road, it's an opportunity here for the Jets. If they're gonna get the Dolphins, this is the week you want to get them. Atlanta and the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay minus 9. We all know their offensive woes. The Falcons have been in every game. I have a hard time not taking Atlanta getting the 9 because they've been close in every game. They've been cover machines. So Atlanta plus 9 is where I would lean there. Lions and the Patriots. New England, the quarterback situation is a mess. We saw Bailey Zapp getting snaps last week after poor Brian Hoyer got hurt. Detroit can score a lot of points. I'd lean Detroit plus 3.5 in that game. Wouldn't be shocked if they got a road win. Titans and the Commanders. I don't like either of these teams. I'd probably stay away with it. Minus 2.5 to the Titans in that game. Chargers and the Browns. Cleveland plus 2.5 at home. The Chargers, they got to figure out a way to protect Justin Herbert in that game, or it ain't going to be pretty. Tell you that much. 49ers on the road at Carolina to take on the Panthers. Baker Mayfield is struggling. Carolina getting 6.5 at home. Right now, I like the 49ers in that game, minus the 6.5. Eagles and Cardinals. Cowboys take on the Rams, Bengals, and the Ravens as well. Sunday night game. A lot of good games this week on the schedule. We'll come back, talk some more sports betting with Nando DeFino of The Athletic next on Sports Map Radio. Stay with us. All right, this will be self-contained on my end. The start of it I've got, and then I will take it out of the interview. It's fairly short, so we'll have some time on the back end.
Uh, 100% no. When I say no,
The cash in rolls along on this Wednesday night. Sports Map Radio, the Sports Map Radio app. Hit me up at the back page if you feel so inclined. Can always get us there. 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 is the telephone number. Want to do some fantasy, do a little sports betting, because that's obviously a big part of what we do on this program. And really excited to bring this guy in. First time I've had a chance to talk to him, but heard a lot about him. Nando Di Fino is joining us from The Athletic. You could also catch him on the Better Sports app. My good buddy Matt Deutsch actually launched that project, and anything that I could do to support Matt with his new venture, I'll obviously do as well. All right, so I'm looking at some different games for this week. It's midweek. We like to do a segment on this show where we sort of go through the midweek lines. So I'll sort of pass that up, and instead I'll talk to you about it. Give me some thoughts. A lot of people love the Cowboys this week. Going into Los Angeles against a Rams team that's sort of scuffling and trying to figure it out. I think people obviously are really high on the Cowboys with the way they've played over the last 3 weeks with Cooper Rush at quarterback, this defense being so good, the Rams at times seeming so limited offensively, where if it's not going to Cooper Kupp, you don't really know what they're doing. Give me some thoughts on this game at 5.5 and Cowboys plus 205 on the money line.
Yeah, I guess this is still believing in Cooper Rush, I guess.
Sort of go through the midweek lines, so I'll sort of pass that up, and instead I'll talk to you about it. The cash in rolls along on this Wednesday night. Sports Map Radio, the Sports Map Radio app. Hit me up at the back page if you feel so inclined. Can always get us there. 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 is the telephone number. Want to do some fantasy, do a little sports betting, because that's obviously a big part of what we do on this program. And really excited to bring this guy in. First time I've had a chance to talk to him, but heard a lot about him. Nando Di Fino is joining us from The Athletic. You could also catch him on the Better Sports app. My good buddy Matt Deutsch actually launched that project, and anything that I could do to support Matt with his new venture, I'll obviously do as well. All right, so I'm looking at some different games for this week. It's midweek. We like to do a segment on this show where we sort of go through the midweek lines, so I'll sort of pass that up, and instead I'll talk to you about it. Give me some thoughts. A lot of people love the Cowboys this week. Going into Los Angeles against a Rams team that's sort of scuffling and trying to figure it out. I think people obviously are really high on the Cowboys with the way they've played over the last 3 weeks with Cooper Rush at quarterback, this defense being so good, the Rams at times seeming so limited offensively, where if it's not going to Cooper Kupp, you don't really know what they're doing. Give me some thoughts on this game at 5.5 and Cowboys plus 205 on the money line.
Yeah, I guess this is still believing in Cooper Rush, I guess, and the Kellen Moore-Cooper Rush combo. We got to write this guy, Brandon Howard. He's a scout. And, he broke it down a little bit this week. I wasn't fully in, but hearing the way he said, Kellen Moore was basically Cooper Rush when Kellen Moore was playing, and he's scheming Cooper Rush this perfect way that he wasn't able to do with Dak, to the point where they should probably keep the same scheme when Dak comes back. But I don't know, there's that intangible of just the Rams playing angry. It's just their offense, like them and the Colts are just so stale. One's got almost like a washed Matt Ryan, and the other one's got an injured Matt Stafford. Crazy. If you want to cross over to fantasy for a second, like the Allen Robinson experience is such a huge surprise for everybody. And I think as he goes, so go the Rams. Taking points away from the Rams seems like a bad idea the way these two teams are going. So, I think the Rams are going to play angry and really come out and want to make a statement game against America's team. So I'd lean the Rams a little bit, by a touchdown. But it might kick me in the butt not believing in the Cowboys the way they're playing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the idea of the Cowboys sort of keeping the same offensive philosophy when Dak comes back. We were literally just had Tony Casillas that we were talking to about it, and he said sort of the same thing. You know, this idea that, and I said to him, I said, you know, why would you change anything when Dak comes back? Yeah, maybe you think he can do some more things offensively, make certain throws Cooper Rush can't make, maybe make a couple plays with his legs, but why would you change anything when you have a defense that's this good?
Right. I mean, this is one of those cases where it's kind of like old school Ravens, you know, like where you just get enough points to win, man. We can win 19-13. Let's just go. Hold on to the ball. Don't turn it over. Let's win. Let's eke by.
Talking with Nando DeFino from The Athletic, also does a good job with Better Sports. You can catch him on the Better Sports app, weekday afternoons, 3 to 5 p.m. 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. You know, I'm on the West Coast, so my whole world gets screwed up. I'm watching the NFL at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning when I'm just waking up, and it kind of screws me all up. You know, it's kind of what we have to deal with out here. You mentioned the fantasy stuff. Give me some guys, give me some bargains on the QB side early this week. You know, you don't want to go and spend $8,200 or $8,100 on a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts. Give me a bargain somewhere in the middle. I mean, I loved Geno Smith last week. I went and got him, and I think he was 6% owned in the particular DFS event that I was in last week. Give me some guys in that middle of the pack that you think can do some things.
I'd definitely go back to Geno. I'm like a Geno Smith guy through and through. You can go back against New Orleans, you go back to him, but like the guy I'm kind of like eyeballing that nobody likes. And look, it's not the greatest matchup against Miami, but Zach Wilson, like he came right in. He started throwing to Corey Davis again like he did last year. He's got so many new – I mean, I know this is the Jets, and they have, you know, the Jets stench on them. But I do think, like, this new regime, they got some panache to him. And Zach Wilson's a very talented quarterback. He throws hard. He's got 3 legitimately good receivers. He's got a Michael Carter who can catch passes out of the backfield, who's severely underrated. Because I think everyone just cast him aside when they drafted Breece Hall. They were just kind of like, Michael Carter, you know, done. But he can get like 7 targets a game really out of the backfield. Yeah, Zach Wilson, I think his Fantasy Pros consensus is 21. I don't know what his DraftKings or FanDuel price is, but I'm sure it's low. You know, right around him too is probably Kenny Pickett, who, you know, if you didn't watch the game, you didn't see, like, you see 3 interceptions, like one was a Hail Mary at the end, you know, one was right through the receiver, bounced off the receiver's hand. He was running. He's got a spark. Like, he sparked that team. And there was a game that, like, not the greatest example of the world, but like Deshaun Watson had this game his rookie year where he broke free for like this 80-yard run. And he was just doing mediocre up to that point. He broke that run, and it was like 300-yard games after that. Everything was, you know, flowers and rainbows. I think Kenny Pickett had that breakthrough already in his first game, and he's just going to grab that offense and go nuts with it. And he's going to run for a lot more yards than people think he will too.
Do you pay up and go get Nick Chubb this week? I know, you know, he's obviously going to cost a lot, but, you know, you look at what he's done, how that offense sort of operates, who they're playing. What do you think of Chubb this week?
I think it'd be Barkley. Like, look, Chubb's awesome, but I think if you're looking at the same price range, I mean, they're running 1-2 in all the rankings I've seen this week. Barkley, I mean, like, doesn't have a quarterback, basically. He was running the Wildcat last week, which we hadn't seen in like 10 years. But yeah, seriously, if you want to go off Barkley, because the entire world will probably be on him because it's just so obvious that they're going to have to run the offense through him even more. Chubb could just, man, he's fantastic. Like, all these fears about him and Hunt splitting are completely gone. Like, it's just like the Nick Chubb show. It's amazing.
This is a completely off-the-wall question. You may not even get asked this anywhere else you are. You probably don't even. If you talked about it on your show, I'd frankly be shocked. But maybe you do, and I'll be pleasantly surprised. How much do you look at, you know, when we're talking about the baseball postseason and betting baseball as it is can be tricky? I tend to believe betting the pace. My past experience has been I've done well betting the baseball postseason. To me, there's a bit more predictability to it. You know, pitchers aren't staying in games as long, or the second they get in trouble, they get pulled out. Do you have any advice or sort of attitude or mentality towards betting postseason baseball?
You know, they switched up the format this year where, like, the wild card teams are going to have all the 3 all 3 home games. They're not going like 2-1. Doesn't mess me up that much, really. I like looking at the pitchers like everybody else, I think. I actually had to fill out a form for work today, like making our predictions. This is weird, maybe, but I saw the Seattle Mariners as like last year's LA Rams. Like, they got a guy on offense, they got a guy on defense. The Rams got Odell Beckham, they got Von Miller. The Mariners went out and got Carlos Santana and Luis Castillo. And they got this momentum going at just the right time, and people are kind of paying attention to them. I'm big on momentum like that. I'm big on just like, some people might be looking at the Mariners as a whole. I'm looking at the Mariners from August 1st forward, and that's a different team. And Ty France is healthy, and he can hit bombs. So that's kind of like that's how I've approached it. I don't know. Like, it's boring just to be like, yeah, the Yankees, yeah, the Dodgers. Dodgers don't have a ton of depth. Yankees, I don't know. I don't know how clutch they are. I've just watched this Aaron Judge parade. But yeah, I kind of look at some weird things like that, and I hone in on a team, and I get obsessed with them. And right now it's the Mariners because I just see some parallels from, I guess, other champions and other teams that made long runs.
Nobody
way off.
Yeah, nobody feels inevitable, to me. And I mean, I was looking at the betting lines today on, World Series outright and all that stuff. And boy, Seattle at plus 3,000. I mean, that's juicy. That's juicy at 3,000. How do you not take a flyer on a team like that? And you didn't even mention my guy Julio Rodriguez. I got one of his. I got a couple of his rookie cards that I'm just sitting on. It's hopefully. I got his tops. The one Lauren Martin drew. The thing they just did, the project. Yes.
The one that she drew, where it's like the cartoon. He's in front of a cartoonish Seattle, and like everything. They got little googly eyes, like and smiley faces, and like. I bought 2 of those. Yeah. I'm like, this is an amazing card.
I pulled out of a blaster. I pulled the out of Series 2. I pulled his SP out of a $30 blaster box. I pulled his SP. So I was like, yeah, and then I'm killing myself. I've told this story on the air. We had Dave Sims on, and I told Dave the story about how I sold. I pulled one of his like pro debut cards. I want to say it was last year's. He had a Topps Pro debut auto to 50. And when he got off to a slow start this year, I was up in Seattle, and I have a friend who owns a card shop, and I went in there and I sold it. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh man. God. I'm just kicking myself, I'm like, oh my God. But
you still got something for it.
Yeah,
right? You still got something for it.
Yeah, I got a little bit.
Out a friend.
Yeah,
look at like you helped out a friend.
Yeah, I did help out a friend. Talking with Nando DeFino from The Athletic, also the Better Sports app. Check them out on there 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern weekdays. And yeah, for me, the baseball postseason is just so hard to try and, I just don't think you can zero in on anybody. I think you have to I think you're right in terms of going with your gut, and somebody like a Seattle at that number. I think they're going to be tough, and I think, getting those games at home, getting those wild card games at home is certainly going to be a big advantage for them as well. Listen, this was a lot of fun. I hope we can do it again at some point during the season, during the football season. We'll get you on maybe closer to the end of the week when we got some of these lines solidified, and we'll have you back on and definitely talk some more for sure.
Yeah, certainly, man. And we can throw some card stuff too. We'll parse it out.
Oh,
5
God.
minutes each.
Do the card stuff. I could do the card stuff all day, man. Don't get me started there. Appreciate it. Yeah. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Also, tweet at the show at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter at The Back Page. I got a winner. We've picked a winner for the box of Chronicles Draft Picks 2022 football cards, rather. We'll announce that coming up in a couple of minutes, so maybe it's you. You have to follow me on Twitter at The Back Page. If you're following me there, simple as that. You have a chance to win. We give something away every Wednesday on the show, and this week it is Chronicles Draft Picks 2022 blaster boxes. So stick around. We'll pick a winner on that coming up in a couple of minutes. Wrap it up with some odds and ends. Get you set up for tomorrow's show, a Thursday extravaganza. We're back with more on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Ba-na-na-na. Ba-na-na-na. Thanks for being with us all night long on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. One final thought. This fan, I don't know if you people have seen it, but so a fan that ran onto the field during the Rams loss to the 49ers on Monday night is filing a police report against Rams linebacker Bobby Wagner. If you haven't seen the video, just Google Bobby Wagner runs over a fan or tackles a fan. Just before halftime of the game at Levi Stadium, a fan ran across the field with what appeared to be a device letting out pink smoke. So Rams linebacker Takaris McKinley came toward the fan. Then Bobby Wagner stepped in, laid him out with one hit. And now that fan who ran onto the field illegally, carrying an incendiary device, is suing Bobby Wagner. Or he's filed a police report. He actually wants him arrested. I mean, it's something akin to the burglar that falls through the skylight and falls onto a knife and cuts his leg open and then sues the people who own the house. I mean, that's the equivalent of this. I mean, it's idiotic. I said earlier in the show, there's some stories that are uniquely American. This is a uniquely American story. You don't see these types of stories anywhere else in the world, only in the United States. Everybody's supporting Wagner. That would include me. Guy's lucky. Man, if I were Wagner, I'd lay him out too. And by the way, security at Levi Stadium, do a better job. I mean, come on, man. You got one job. How does a fan get on the field and run all over the field before he gets laid out by a player? What if he was carrying a knife or a gun? It looked like something out of the Benny Hill show, watching these security guards try to chase him down. All right, we got a winner for the 2022 Panini Chronicles Draft Picks NFL cards. Congratulations to one of my new Twitter followers. That would be DSTXEX. You win this week. Congratulations. I'll be contacting you, and we'll get your address, and we'll get this mailed out to you. Listen, every Wednesday to the cash-in, we give something away. You get that 2022 Panini Chronicles Draft Picks box. We'll get that in the mail to you here over the next couple of days. I got a bunch of boxes I got to ship out. Going to have to do like a mass shipping day or something. It's going to wrap it up for us. Tomorrow night on the program, the Thursday night edition of the Cash-In is always fun. We do a lot of live betting talk around the Thursday night NFL game. We'll make some predictions on the baseball divisional series, which get underway on Friday night as well. Thank you to executive producer Vladimir Lewis, Austin in Houston. Thank you for producing and engineering there as well. I'm Jason Page. Catch you back here on Thursday night on Sports Map Radio. Bye! All right, Austin, you got the segments. You're good to go. And who's doing tomorrow? No, John did Monday, Tuesday. Maybe it's Brian. All right, but it's not you. Okay. All right. Have a good night, man. Hope you feel better too. All right. Be well. Bye-bye. To those watching on the video stream, have a great night.